Games, board games. I might be talking about board games, but I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this dreaming with a little bit of singing, and I guess some saying it's occurred to me that, in my opinion, there are three things that a game can ask of you, three types of agency. It's choices and skill and self-expression, creativity. Board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, and I'm not gonna shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. 10 a.m. ish UK time, time for Bezzy Beats and Board Game Leather, episode 823. And I want to say something that I've been pondering like for a wee while. It's kind of just crystallized as a thought. I believe that there are three types of agency, and like three things that a game can ask of a player. Like, so the first type is strategy, choices. This doesn't just include Agricola and Energy Empire, but yes, there are choices to be made in Monopoly. I mean, I'm not And for sure, you can have more or fewer choices. Like, some people might say that's more or less agency, but I'm going to say it's not quite as simple as that. But even in charades, there is the choice of what do you draw on this bit of paper. Even in snooker, there's the strategic choice of where do you pot the ball. Even, frankly, in Dance Dance Revolution, there is the choice of when do you hold the barriers to give yourself an extra, ability to jump up. Where exactly do you put your feet if you're having two things very quickly in one bit? It's like, how do you do that? But then the second part, so like obviously Dance Dance Revolution is mainly about the execution. And so the execution is, okay, building up the muscle memory, um, just being able to flick things properly in, you know, Kuruka or Sabutio or Shape Invaders, or, I mean, I'm sure there's more popular, or the ability to pull out a block and feel it. Like the execution, it's about not just the mental pondering, what am I going to do, but it's about the ability to actually do it. So I would say there's kind of a separation here between the mental, giving you infinite time, and the, okay, do you actually have limited time? I mean, matching games are all about the execution. It's like, okay, can I see these things properly? But again, there is that tiny bit of, well, maybe I try to remember this. Maybe every time a card is flipped over, I scan the table quickly. You can have different strategies of how you do the thing, but it's basically about doing the thing. Now, finally, you've got the self-expression, and this is primarily in non-score based games. Lots of people do play Once Upon a Time as a game about self-expression and storytelling, but interestingly, it seems at odds with the scoring. I mean, any game which adds scoring, I think self-expression and true creativity kind of falls apart once you add in scoring. I would say, okay, a game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings and complements, that's kind of about the self-expression. But even there, like if you want to be one of the people who gets their compliments complimented, then sure, you can express yourself whilst you're doing your compliments and in the drawing, but in the final bit of complimenting the compliments, there's kind of the little bit of choice in how what do you choose to compliment? What do you think the other person is going to respond to? And yeah, I guess there's definitely the separation between it being a mathematical, you know, a mathematical construct like, you know, Game of Thrones or Risk, which sure it has a good amount of luck in it, but it's still you can work out what the absolute best thing to do, or in backgammon, or in Go, or in chess, or whatever. Yes, it's mathematical constructs, and a person across from me doesn't make much difference. But then, in us, and that again divides neatly into mathematical constructs and social constructs, where the social constructs are the things like werewolf, social deduction games, um, negotiation, possi like something like Lifeboats, which is a wonderful game about trying to encourage people to vote on my side and vote the other people. But yeah, I thought it would be interesting to ponder a few things. And if you've got any games and you're like, hey, which of these three categories would this game fit under? Then maybe we can ponder this together. But let's first go and chat about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. Um, Honestly, didn't get up too much yesterday. Um, was a bit of a grisly day. Today's looking brighter, which is nice, and definitely going to get outside. Bits of yeah. Yesterday was very much a I'm not doing anything. I'm just recovering, and that's okay. I do have now a couple more emails that I need to reply to, and I try to arrange something for today that might not work out. And also, I think I set up the Facebook event for my leaving do on the 11th, 12th, and 13th of August, which, if you know me well, or yeah, like if you know me, if you're watching this, then assume that you're invited, but let me know because it will be a guest list only type thing. Let's talk about brilliant things. Brilliant things. What's a little thing which is brilliant? Brilliant things. I think sunlight, just having a bit of light, seeing the shadows. I mean, shadows make things come alive. You enjoy the 3D nature of things, like just light and shadow. It's a wonderful thing, and I think lighting can totally change whatever you're looking at. As always, feel free to comment, ask questions, fun like, follow. So, main topic. Um, I think that within within scoring systems, there's kind of like two parts to focus on. The execution, which is, am I able to do this? Do I have this knowledge? Am I able to flick? Am I able to pull? Am I able to move the stick like in snooker in a straight line and hit it over there? Am I able to like blow hard in like some of these games that aren't packaged but might be like about blowing things over, or, well, to be fair, Terra and Meeple City did involve that. Am I able to bounce this ball correctly? Am I able to dangle this string from my forehead and pick up things with it? It's all about the execution. It's all about overcoming that physical challenge or having that knowledge, but there's not really much what choice of okay, the choice of what to do, what is best to do is fairly clear, assuming that I have the skill. But then there are games that focus primarily on the choice. And even though people feel like, oh, exploding kittens, it's just a silly game, I mean, you've got, I guess maybe I could again separate that choice part, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, into choices about mathematical constructs, which Exploding Kittens kind of is. I mean, Exploding Kittens, I would say, is the same style of game from that perspective as Agricola. And I know that might not be something you expected me to be saying, but let's think about it. Sure, Agricola, obviously, you've got a lot more to think about, but you're not thinking about, okay, who is the player across the table from me? It's just about what they've done. It's just about the mathematical state of the board. And similarly, it's not about playing to the other minds of the players. It's not about any difficulty with pulling the card. I mean, if you are physically unable to pull a card in either of these games, you could ask someone else to do it for you. And the physicality is not meant to be the challenging part. Similarly, no, it's not about the creativity. It's not about, okay, I'm going to tell a story about me being on a farm life or about oh my gosh, oh alas, this kitten has exploded and now I must die because I do not have a defuse card. Yes, one of them has a lot more things to ponder, and there's no denying that. One of them has a lot more strategy, you might say, and I don't think anyone would deny that. But like, it's for the type of agency that the game asks of you. And I think that's the key thing that I'm asking. What types of agency are there? Not how does it feel? I'm not saying that all games about creativity feel the same or all strategic games feel the same. But yes, I think that strategic games about the mathematical construct, um, Agricola is definitely there, and Exploding Kittens is there, although it pushes that less. It's kind of like a, I don't want to say watered down but it's a milder version. It's as if, you've got to build up this spice tolerance, and maybe you just innately like spicy things, in which case you might want to play Agricola and be making all those crunchy decisions, as they're called. Then we've got the social aspect and negotiation, trading. I mean, frankly, Bonanza, because the more limitations you put on the trading, on what you're allowed to say, the more it becomes a game about the mathematical construct where people be you should be able to build up more of a model of, okay, that person should do this because this is clearly best. But of course, you can't be a Puerto Rico poo-poo head. Don't be telling people off for doing the slightly wrong thing. You've got to adapt to the chaos of the other players. That is part of any game. If there's players around you, then you have to be able to adapt to their chaos. But fundamentally, um, whether you're playing, sorry, I'm trying to actually, okay, One Night Ultimate Werewolf, or a game about writing words trying to match other folk exactly 3 times, it's thinking about what are the other players likely to do? What does this say about them? And you're playing more about what are their preferences? What would this person choose? As opposed to how are all these pieces arranged, if that makes sense. So that's like almost like 1A and 1B. And then we've got the execution. And again, this could be clearly subdivided into speed games like Kitchen Rush, or a game about quickly grabbing cards and trying. That's a game about quickly grabbing creatures. That's are totally different, and counting your beetroots. Or what else? Jenga, where it's dexterity, or set. I mean, set is an interesting one because it's a fairly complex game. I mean, the task which you normally have to do within one of these speed games, where it's boom, I did it first, I get points, I did it first, I get points, is normally incredibly simple. Something that should take you like a couple of seconds, whereas set, especially for beginners, it might take you like half a minute or more to look at these things and think, okay, which of these, okay, all the shapes need to either match or be three different, all the colors need to match or be three different, all the fills need to match or be three different. Okay, yeah, does that work? And there is some sort of execution strategy of how you execute that, as I said earlier on. But fundamentally, It's about that ability to execute. It's testing your um yeah, your speed of doing. Can you even do this? It's not, do you know what to do? But can you do it? Can you do this quickly? Can you pull the block? And so you've got like things about that are about the physicality, things that are mainly about the quick thinking, and actually by making the task slightly more complex, set increases the quotient of being about the quick thinking, because when you've got something like twin it or jungle speed, the quick thinking might be like half a second. So then the physical action of grabbing that, if I take like half a second to do, the easier the thinking part in terms of the speed, the more the physical grabbing or touching the things is going to be, the more important it's going to be. So yeah, you've got physical maneuvering, and that might apply to sports. It might apply to, anything you'd consider a dexterity game. And speed, timing, it's kind of a slightly different thing. But like, of course, sports have the timing as well as the, physical dexterity part. And then finally, self-expression. Again, to be pure self-expression, I mean, I guess you could argue that Why Did the Chicken, a game about, yeah, okay, that's about self-expression, creativity, about, and is charades, at what point does it become strategy? At what point does it become self-expression? I guess it's a really bloomin' blurry line, because am I to say that, well, if I what is creativity and self-expression, and how does it differ from strategy? That's something that I kind of wish that I had someone to ponder this with. And I feel like self-expression, it's when nothing matters. The purest form of self-expression is when you've got true freedom. When in an RPG, I could attack you in a LARP, or I could kiss you, and like with the player's consent, I might double check. Hey, just to check, are you okay with a bit of romance? Are you okay with me suddenly attacking you? You might want to double check with the player, but once you've double checked that, or if you know up front that those things are okay, you could go in either direction. It doesn't matter whether you know, tell, sing a song in this exact manner or that exact manner. The point is just that you express something. And maybe in a sense, the more aspects of a game that don't really matter, the more opportunity there is for self-expression. Like in a collectible card game, if you are allowed to collect different cards that have maybe different arts on them but are functionally the same card, like let's say you've got a sudden rush card, and this sudden rush makes a character move 5 spaces, and it costs you 2 magic. I don't know what game this is. This is a hypothetical game, but this card, Sudden Rush, has been printed several times. You're making your deck, and you could pick this one or you could pick this one. The only difference is the art. Now, by having an aspect that doesn't matter for the state of the game, that means that you're building in more self-expression. Similarly, like with a Jenga block, I mean, you've got self-expression around a game. Like if I want to dance before I pull each Jenga block, sure, that's a form of self-expression, but it's not like the game gives me extra affordances. I mean, I could be walking down the street and then every so often I wave my arms, and I think self-expression to some degree is about that sense of creativity, doing things which fundamentally don't matter. And if there's no decision of, okay, is this better or is that better? At that point, boom, self-expression. I mean, within a strategic game, if you're not too sure about what's going on, well, maybe you go for this strategy, maybe you go for that strategy, maybe they're both equally viable, boom, self-expression. And whilst certain people might be saying, well, at that point, what's the point in having both? You want one to be actually better so that it's a game of strategy. Maybe you do, but maybe you just want it to offer some opportunity for creativity and self-expression. Obviously, like when you've got granular things in a board game saying do this or do that or do that, it's less expressive than, okay, draw a thing. And going back to charades, sure, drawing a thing, is that self-expression or is that a strategic choice or tactical or whatever you want to say, where I'm thinking, okay, how can I best convey the word house to you? For me, the essence of house is the two lines for the walls and the triangle for the roof. That would be the essence of house. Anything more is superfluous, but maybe if you don't get it straight away, I might then draw a long thing, like maybe a bit of grass, a door, and then a window. And the window would, and so it's working out what's the essence of it. And yeah, sure, there's some creativity and self-expression, but I think it's primarily actually about the choice strategy, but with playing in other people's minds of what would other people see as a house. It's not about expressing what I would see as a house, it's expressing that. And so sure, a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises, I mean, sure, you can have a lot of your creativity and expressiveness wrapped up into that noise that you make. But there's still actually a lot of strategy in there. I mean, building up that language, when you make a number of noises that roughly equate to the number of mouths, and what will other people think of, trying to think what will maximize, like, because it's a game about restricted communication and thinking, how can I best communicate and making that choice? And so, yeah, whilst there is creativity wrapped up in there, I think that the true games of creativity are those where either the players have decided to ignore the points or there were no points to begin with. Maybe a LARP, maybe something where you could go on a long monologue about how you were captured and how you have been enslaved and forced into your role, or you could say that you went into it willingly, and it doesn't matter. You're not going to be judged either way. It's true freedom of expression. And I think that's kind of a lovely thing. And in a sense, maybe that makes those games more truly about self expression than if you were performing to an audience. Because, look, if I'm drawing, if I'm performing music in a bar, if I am, making a game, sure, that's self expression in the form that I'm expressing myself, but it's also, I need to think about the other people and what will resonate with them. But if it's just within a game, sure, I think about that a little bit, but I'm allowed to be self indulgent. And in a LARP, in an RPG, I'm just going to be thinking about what do I want to do? What would make this more interesting to me? And so I think that's maybe even a purer form. So yeah, hello Elaine, good morning. I hope that you have a wonderful morning. And I've just basically finished this. But yeah, do you have any questions about the topic of the day, which hopefully you can see at the bottom? Yeah, the three types of games. So I've decided that it's about the choices, the strategy, and then Agricola and Monopoly and Exploding Kittens. All of them are, about the mathematical choice of do this or do that, based on everything on the board. Then you've got choice strategy B, which is about the other people, social deduction. There's probably a best thing to do, but it's about that. Then you've got execution, which is a completely separate thing. It might be about dexterity, might flicking or holding, contorting your body or holding an egg between your legs. I don't know. It might be about speed, doing things quickly, observation, about you know, it's about the doing. Can you then do this? Which I understand part of that might be the cognitive. Can you strategize? But that making choices is such a big part, such a big thing that it deserves its own separate category. And then finally, you've got the creativity and self expression, which is, you know what? All I want to do is do things and I'm expressing myself. Um, Elaine says, I still don't really understand what LARPing is. Is it like cosplay, but you actually act like who you're playing rather than just dressing like them? Yes, I would actually consider LARP closer to a tabletop role playing game. I mean, maybe I should have just said role playing rather than LARPing to avoid confusion. But in role playing, you might say, my character approaches the door, or my character checks for traps, or you might say, my character sings to the party. But in a LARP, you have to actually sing to the party, or if you're swinging a sword, you will actually swing the sword. I mean, it's not like you're swinging the sword to hit, and um, the word isn't. And the word but makes it sound like you think that you're contradicting something that I've said, but I don't see any contradiction between you saying, yes, I agree, that's why games are so great, because there's a variety of games and how you can play them, yes. And I'm just exploring the different forms. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm not saying that for a moment. I don't understand why you use the word but. I mean, but sounds like you're disagreeing with something. Have I said something to suggest that I don't think that all three things are equal? I mean, I'm not saying for a moment that strategic games are better or creative games are better. Okay, cool, cool. Okay, yeah. Yes, I agree. All types of games are great, 100%. And I just think that when making a game, when playing a game, it's useful to maybe, I mean, not everyone needs to do this. You can't just go through life and think, oh, I like this kind of game where you roll a bunch of dice and do a thing. Or you can say, hey, I like a game where it's about a bit more social and conversational, without really analyzing it to the degree that I do. I mean, for sure, if you want to make hundreds of games and sell like hundreds of thousands or even millions of copies, then it behooves you to really analyze them and really think about what people get out of games. And I think that I've said before, the main things in a game are rules. There needs to be some sort of clear rules, like some sort of, okay, this is what you're allowed to do. I think that it needs to be opt-in. Like you can't force someone to play a game. If you're forcing them to play a game, I think that's not really a game. That's like, yeah, that's work. Or yeah. And if you can't stop playing a game, I don't think it's really a game again. I think you should be able. And then the third thing is agency. Now, I don't think there needs to be necessarily choices. I think that and it's a feeling of agency. It's about what level of feeling of agency you want. And the lowest feeling of agency that I can imagine is something in LCR, left, center, right, where you roll the dice and then you just give the stuff to other people, and that, or indeed snakes and ladders. Now, something like that, does it have any of the above? I mean, I guess it has I mean, the closest it has is the execution. It's about, okay, we're rolling the dice, we're doing the thing, and then you get the tactile joy. You get that, well, the number of choices to make is literally zero. The self-expression, sure, again, I could express myself by doing something completely unrelated to the game. I could start singing about everything while I'm playing it, but that's not what the that's not facilitated by the game in any means. So that just leaves a slight, the merest hint of execution. And whether you're a child playing Snakes and Ladders or indeed an adult playing it and enjoying the tactile quality of the rolling of the dice, I think it behooves me to think about, yeah, that simple rolling of the dice, that joy of being in touch with these physical components, that's part of what makes these execution games, like the games that are about can you even do the thing, like sports. Okay, I'm going to say LARP if it's a fighting style LARP, because Nordic style LARP, where it's about more talking and exploring the issues of motherhood, or exploring incarceration, or dungeons and therapy, my own thing, where there's a bunch of people and then they decide what they want their characters to do, and we're developing this story together. But then a fighting style LARP, which I played for the first time on Saturday, you have to be fit enough to run around, to be able to swing a foam weapon at the other player. Can I block? Can I do this? And it's actually about that execution. And I'm not the fittest person ever, but I've got some degree of fitness. I'm able to run away. And so that improves my ability to play this. And, you know, rolling things, there is a joy in that. And if you're rolling the dice, you need to think, well, this is where the joy comes in, and actually the component's quality matters more and more. If that is what you are engaging with, if that's the form of agency that you're engaging with, then the component's quality is key, which basically means that, look, super heavy dice, if you roll them, they won't even really roll. You've got to think about the corners of the dice, because if it's too sharp, then again, it won't roll. And is it light enough to maybe bounce and encourage it to roll, but is it heavy enough to come to a stop? And, you know, what is the joy of the game? And sure, a game can have multiple aspects of bringing joy to different people, and that's fantastic. And some people can play Once Upon a Time as a strategic game, which does mean that you're going to have like the shortest, most boring stories ever. Or you can have some people playing it as a storytelling game, and hopefully those people won't be playing with each other because then they might have a bad time. And you need to think about, why are other people playing this? What are other people coming here? Do you think that there's a um, fourth thing that I've not really explored? Or would you agree? I mean, I understand that there's some blurriness. I understand that games. And would you like me to um, categorize any games, or is it all super clear to you? Do these three aspects make sense? Because, yeah, it just this is just yet another lens to consider games. Now, I don't think there's any one way to categorize games that makes sense. I don't think that's, yeah, quite right. I think that in the same way that we could look at, you know, we could categorize games in any number of means, but this is just one, like in the same way that we could look about your reason for playing the game. Um, Timmy, Tammy, Jenny, Johnny, and Spike, which Mark Rosewater invented, where Timmy Tammy is all about the big moments, the spectacle. Jenny or Johnny are all about the self-expression, and Spike is about the competitiveness. And I guess that could kind of map, but to me, that's more why do you do the thing. So it's about what's the game facilitating rather than what you're bringing to the game necessarily. But then by the same token, you've got those free psychographics, and then you've got also the Bartle psychographics, which is, do you want to exert power, or do you want to kind of be in harmony? Is it other players, or is it the game? So you've got conquerors who want to beat the game and be like, yeah, let's work on this game. And then they might enjoy cooperative games. You've got people who are all about the player versus player who might who are going to want to show their dominance of the other players. You've got people who basically want to socialize, and you've got people who just want to tinker and explore what's going on in the game. And so, in the same way, I'm not that very different psychographics can be useful. I'm just suggesting that these three types of games are maybe another thing that could be useful to someone to think about. Let me know if you disagree, and let me know if there's any games that you're not clear where they would match. But I've rambled on for quite a bit, and at this point, I'm going to say question of the day. Question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. Question of the day. My question of the day is, which style of games do you think you are generally drawn towards? I think for me, like if I would categorize them first, second, third, I think generally for me it's choice style games, because I think that whilst I'm less about the mastery and more about the exploration, I would say, I think that choice style games, I like that they tend to be gentle, they tend to give me stuff to consider, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I would say that execution style games are really good for, I mean, yeah, like if I'm actually considering the strengths and weaknesses, I perceive them again. This is making massive generalizations, but choice style games, if it's about the mathematical constructs, then they are going to be giving you a lot of things to ponder. Salut, comment ça va? J'espère que tu es. I hope you're well. Um, and thank you for following. Elaine says, I think they tie into each other. There are games that give you the impression they have a level of self expression, such as games where there are multiple ways to get points, but the execution of the game means there is a clear path to winning. And yeah, so which one? But I think that for me, it's less about which style it is and more, I think I'd want there to always be some choices for me. I think that if it's too much about the execution, then I get tired, like, well, there's not much I can do. If it's too much about physical skill that I don't quite have yet, and I feel like the only way that I can build it up is to play it lots and lots of times, then that can feel a bit sad. If there's choices, then choice style games can be faster to improve at, because then you see what you did wrong, then straight away you can say, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I do like a bit of skill in the game, a bit of speed, as you can tell, a bit of dexterity, but yeah, I like that mixed in with choices. And do I like self-expression? Yes, absolutely. I like it, again, where there's a clear boundary and this is what you're allowed to do. So, over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. What are you up to? Let me know. Um, Today I'm going to have a bit of a walk outside, get myself properly started today, get myself back into life, and be pondering some stuff. I'm going to submit a few games. I'm going to write a submission form to a couple of companies that I'm not going to get into. Um, Try and sort out my shop by the end of today so that there's some more games on there. Take some photos. So if you would like to buy my two latest games, oh, I am going to be putting a Christmas thing. Then yeah, if you buy free games from me, I will chuck in an extra game for free. Within the UK? Nah, yeah, just for a limited time until I stop sending out things out for the post. It'll be, feel like I should give it a proper deadline rather than just saying, oh, until whenever. Let's say until the 5th of December. Yeah, that feels like reasonable length of time. So from tomorrow until the 5th of December, if you buy free games from my shop, you will get a bonus game for free, and the bonus game is going to be In a Bind Junior, which, if you don't already have that, that's a variant on In a Bind, which is now known as Yogi. There's a lot of cards in there that were never reprinted, and you can totally mix it with the Yogi cards. It really doesn't matter, you knowing what's coming up. But yeah, I'm going to do a bit of that, a bit of submitting games, a bit of getting stuff down. Elaine says that's very generous. I mean, I've got a bunch of copies, and hopefully people will enjoy it. And I will. Yeah, I was not sure. Should I just do it automatically, or should I require people to type something into the either the code or the yeah, just into a comment saying free game please or something like that. Yeah, little code might be quite a good choice because, and it's like, hey, I get this thing. Elaine says, if the choice is either killing or breeding sheep, and one is clearly worse, then I find it frustrating. Yes, I do agree. And so, yes, for sure, in a choice-based game, if the best choice is too obvious, then there's nothing left. Whereas I think, yeah, talking about the benefits, and I think I want to almost revisit this on another day when I'm on my own, thinking about, what's the advantages and disadvantages of these things once I've had a little bit more time to ponder it by myself. But yes, that's a nice thing about skill-based games, that normally these skills, your ability to execute it better, to pull blocks without things tumbling over, there can be a ridiculously high upper ceiling on how good you could get at this. You could get faster and faster and faster at jungle speed to the point where you're taking like 0.01 seconds, hypothetically. Whereas, you know, in, well, it depends on the game, obviously. Like, Go has a ridiculously high skill ceiling, but as soon as you're flicking stuff, then there's a massively high skill ceiling, even though it looks like quite a casual game, and it is, because you're sometimes going to make that mistake and it gives it a friendlier feel. But yeah, you can keep you can keep practicing for years to come. But if it's just, well, clearly I breed the sheep, and then I breed the sheep, and then I kill them all on the last turn, because you get points for how many sheep you kill in one turn. But yeah, and that's another, downside. So I think that's a topic for another day. But yes, what are you up to? Let me know. Recap and wrap up before we finish up. Fundamentally, three types of games. This is not that this is the only way to divide games. This is just a way to divide games. Firstly, strategic stuff. It could be about mathematical constructs or about other people. So, skill execution. That could be about whether you can pull this, whether you can do the thing quickly, whether you are able to make the noise fast enough, whether you're able to blow, whether you're able to move this thing that's dangling off your head. Yeah, fundamentally it still goes into either speed or dexterity, like physicality. If we count the blowing and all of that has, yeah, that. And you've got the self-expression. And interestingly, the self-expression, I think, is at odds with the other two, because the other two can and almost exist best when there's a measure of success, when there's a level of, okay, you get this many points. But true self-expression, I believe, really comes to the fore when you've got no points, no measure of success, and it's just, hey, here's what you're doing, do the thing. And I could be like, what name I had? Well, I gave a name, and people addressed me using that name. I mean, was it the best name? Well, who's to say? There's no level of success. And so, whatever name I gave, that was mine. And so, that was almost the purest form of self expression. I'm going to say that once more. I talked about sunlight being brilliant. We talked about how different types of games being different is what makes games lovely, because you can have all of these different styles of games. And with these three aspects, you can have more of them or less of them. It's not like you've got to have an equal amount. You can have stuff that's a tiny bit of all three. You could have something theoretically that's a lot of all three. That's got to, and actually, the more you've got of any of these, the more yeah, how can I, and again, self-expression seems to be the red-headed stepchild almost. But the more you've got of skill going on in the game, the more you've got like choices going on in the game, the more the barrier to entry. And so yeah, my latest thing, the thing that I'm most excited about, where it's a dexterity bag building, and you're thinking about what to put into your bag, but you've got to be able to look at it and take things out quickly and put them onto the little board really quickly. I mean, that's a lot. And yeah. And sorry I missed the things. Elaine says, I don't think you can have self-expression if the game is asking you to do something you can't physically do. Yes, 100% agreed. And that's why I would say that yeah, it needs to be some. If you struggle to come up with any name, at that point it's just okay. Well, the first name that I'm able to come up with, that is the name. But at a very, but like at a more fundamental level, if I'm struggling to move, let's say I can't move my feet, then how can I express myself through the form of dance? And hello, Xate, it is lovely to see you. And I'm glad that the root canal went well. That sounds fantastic. Um, wow, that is quite a challenge, and I'm glad you're able to do that. But yeah, that is the recap. And yeah, it's been a bit of a ponder, it's been a bit of a blather, it's been a bit of a, I've worked things out. Hopefully this has been interesting. Let me know how it's been for you. Let me know what you think. If you want to check me out, I'm a Stuff Babies in all of the places. Tomorrow I'm chatting to Jessica Medringham. We will chat about Christmas stuff. And when I say Christmas stuff, I mean obviously we live in a very Christian part of the world. I mean the UK, it's very Christian, and but people are buying stuff for Christmas presents potentially or whatever. And yeah, although it's cross commercialization, yeah, I want to take advantage of that. And yes, and then Thursday I will have Hua Hua Xiang back talking about illustration and 3D modeling on Thursday, and Friday will be a very quick chat, and Saturday, Sunday might have a guest, but we'll find out. Share, spread the word. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I'm opening my chocolateria today for the season. um, I assume that refers to you making stuff and then posting them out. Um, I guess that's something I can look forward to when I come over, and maybe when I come over, I can have a chocolate with an interesting taste in it. Um, and just for the so, unless anyone has anything left to say, you'll be here when it's cold enough to make some chocolate. Okay. So lots of love to everyone, and the only thing left to say is, of course, bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Do 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 do. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Shoo, shoo. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go to do bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye bye, everyone. And I hope you have a lovely day, whatever you're up to. Bye bye.